Hi everyone, this is the video I was talking about regarding Neptune, and today we're going to be discussing what is called the morphogenetic field, or it's just a fancy name of saying consciousness or Neptune and what it represents and so on and so forth. So welcome. I really hope that you're going to enjoy this video. I've tried to construct it in a way that's really clear so that you can get a good understanding of how it operates. So I chose this picture specifically, and the reason why that's the case is because I want you to notice that there's a connection here of these lines, and it's like the electric charge. Now, in order for the electric charge to have a sense of connection, or a sense, the electric charge to basically be felt, we need to have a certain nerve, a system, okay? And that then travels through these connections. Now you can see that they're all over the place. This is Neptune. This like, I don't even know what I could actually call it, to be honest, but I would say that this would be a sensor and all these like lines over here. And the way that we collectively understand ourselves, and this is why empaths exist and why Neptune will correlate to your nervous system, not your nervous system. What's the word I'm looking for? A little bit blank today. Your immune system. The reason why it correlates to that is because Neptune is, Pisces is everything, okay? It is the totality of everything. So let's begin there. So in order for everything to connect, it would need to have a spark, and that would be kind of like Uranus. So when we experience electric impulses in our reality, the physical body tells us through the brain that there is something here. Okay, just as you're watching this experience right now, in the physical, the eyes are receiving and observing, and your ears are receiving, and that is obviously creating electric charge within the brain, and that charge is then allowing you to tap into a deeper, more state of consciousness, okay, that is existing on the field around you. So when you try to understand Neptune, it is that entire sort of field, and the electrical impulses is Uranus, okay? And that's how we interact with it. So another way that I can explain that is if you, on a Friday, you can always feel on Friday that there's this kind of like Friday feeling, like liberation. And the reason why that's the case, or if you go to a football match, for instance, or you travel where there's large crowds, there's always a sense of like a collection of emotions that are experienced. So of course, what's occurring here is that this connection that you're experiencing there is simultaneously had with other people, and you feel that unity, okay? That is that unified field. So it's the best way I can kind of explain this to you in that sense. All right, so the first thing that I want to do here quickly, and I want to use this image in the best way possible. Neptune is all of this here, okay? Now, it's really, really important to recognize, guys, that each and every single one of us were born into reality where a part of our lives we had to surrender to our upbringing. We had to surrender to what we had to see, what we had to perceive. And Neptune correlates to that distortion that we carry within us about what is real and what isn't real. And we go through disillusioning experiences in our lives that teach us about what is really there for us. So wherever you have Neptune in your birth chart, you actually have a general sort of like delusion about what is reality in contrast to what it actually is about. Okay, and we will never actually know what the ultimate reality is from the human perspective, at least, because at the end of the day, we need to be outside this realm in order for us to see the totality. So Neptune will be this like imagery that you have within inside of yourself. And for me personally, I created this channel to heal myself. I created this channel for me to be able to teach myself astrology and to become better at the ability to communicate. And so far, it's working out for me. But what inspires me to do this is this idea that this is my mission, okay? And of course, this is my own delusion in that way as well, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a point where that will lose its inspiration, that will change, and I won't be motivated anymore by it. And there will be a new direction for me. So each and every one of us carries this kind of imprinting, this kind of like belief structure or, idealism, etc., about what reality is and how it operates. Okay. And we perceive reality through that lens. Now, as you move through your life, you learn to open up like little gaps in this, what is called the Maya, okay, this veil that exists over us. And as you go through many experiences, the veil, as it were, becomes wider and wider and wider. I just want to kind of get this thing over here. So there's an opening that occurs, and there's an opening that occurs, and if there's an opening that occurs, these are like kind of reality checks. And eventually over a period of time, you start having these connections where eventually a bigger part of the veil tears and you can see more of your soul comes through. Okay, I mean, this is terrible drawing, but you get the point I'm trying to make. So Neptune is that process of us going through many, many experiences that eventually over a period of time will then become the lifting of the veil, as it were, an awakening to your soul. And that is referenced in the video that I created earlier on Neptune Direct regarding incarnating more of yourself into reality that is actually who you actually are, not some identity structure that is still living in a different timeline. Okay. So another way that I really want to put this across to everybody, and I've probably shown this to you before, but it's an amazing experience. And you know, for many of us, and you've heard me talk about the Saturn moon matrix or Capricorn and the moon correlating to self-identity and such. And the reason why this is the case is because when you truly want to understand an archetype in your consciousness, you've got to really understand it from the perspective of perception. So for many souls on the planet that are, quote, unawakened or still under the illusion of control, the only reason why that's the case is because their consciousness is still interacting with the first sphere that exists within our solar system, which is the moon. The moon's the closest to the Earth. So self-identity, security, that's why we have such an influence on security in our world, and that's what influences people to make decisions at the end of the day. It's like total mind control when it comes to that. So when you're accessing the more aspects of reality, you can now, if I take you from this picture to this one over here, there's the moon, there's like Saturn, or there's Saturn, for instance. Okay, let's go Neptune here. Do you see what your consciousness needs to be doing in order to access the Neptunian field? So you have to go through these consistent sort of awakenings within yourself that shatter the paradigm or boundaries that exist in your consciousness to allow you to see more of the reality. And really, Neptune is just that process of facilitating that spiritual evolution. As you break the perception of just the moon, now you see something outside of yourself. It's like, okay, you look at Jupiter, now it's about belief systems, you know, you've got a philosophy, and so on and so forth, okay? So Neptune is just that process of breaking that spell, or should I say that illusion, and opening up your consciousness to more of it. It is the field of consciousness. Right, so this is why you want to spend a lot of time like learning and being creative and experiencing life and you know, studies and such like that, and expanding your consciousness, because the more you can expand it, the greater perception that you have of reality. So another way that I could really put this across to you again is these spheres, and I would use Neptune in this case. I mean, this is how I see Neptune in our lives, as we have these spaces. Can you see the spaces that are there? Okay, so Saturn, remember when I spoke to you in the previous video, Neptune Direct, I said that Saturn correlates to, and Neptune correlates to spiritual journey. Well, that's the case, because in order to understand dimensions, there needs to be the principle of separation or boundary, Saturn, time, and there needs to be the principle of space, time and space. And so the spheres in which we perceive our consciousness to be is directly relative to the amount of time and space that we have explored in our consciousness, the dimensions that we see. So one thing that will be really, really interesting here for everybody to note is that if, say, for instance, you've been, you know, reading up on astrology and you're trying to understand a certain archetype in your consciousness, okay? And let's say, for instance, you really want to try and understand why you have Mercury in the 4th house. So let me get my pen over there. Where is it? There we go. And there's Mercury in the 4th house, and you're trying to understand it. Let me actually erase this here and get a clearer perspective on what I'm trying to point out to everybody. Okay, so you're trying to understand Mercury in the 4th house, and your current awareness of what Mercury and so on and so forth, your dimensions, not your dimensions, your definitions, time and space, of what that means, say for instance, only has a certain exploration of it. Okay, so you follow me here. Okay, you want to understand Mercury in the 4th house in your birth chart. You want to understand why climate change occurs. You want to understand anything. the cosmology that you have, the definitions that you have, the knowledge that you have will be directly linked to the capacity to answer that question. Therefore, what happens is that when you are accessing Neptune in your consciousness, i.e. expansion of consciousness, then what you're doing is you're dissolving the boundaries or layers between what is going to be your perception of what you think the answer is to what it actually is. I'll give an example because I really want to drive this home. Mercury in fourth house, and you've read a book, and it's told you that Mercury in the fourth house means that you need strong not strong communication. That's a terrible example. Mars in Cancer. There we go. I love that one. Mars in Cancer. So Mars in Cancer, you've read up, says that you're somebody that's so squishy. You're somebody that's definitely, not, you're very closed off, and there's a tendency here to be very emotional, and you can be snappy. It's like, yes, that's true. Okay, all those things are personality traits that come with that archetype. Okay, and let's say, for instance, that gives you that awareness of that archetype. Okay, now Neptune comes along and says, okay, come on, let's try and dissolve that reality. Let's try and go through an experience where you can maybe transcend that boundary that you are aware of it. Let's search for a new type of knowledge. All of a sudden, you come across a school of thought, say EA, Evolutionary Astrology, and all of a sudden it says to you, did you know that generally with the case, and I've known this because of, any person that's got that Mars in Cancer signature I've actually dealt with, and I've seen it all the time, is that they generally incarnate into this lifetime within the first couple of parts of their lives being shown that the world is not safe. Okay, through whatever circumstance. And so therefore there is now this deep psychological association with the world not being safe, and therefore I need to pay close attention to our environment. And so through that process, learn about the Cancer archetype of nurture and protect. Okay, because the soul is wanting to do that, wanting to understand that archetype. So now you've expanded your knowledge on it, and all of a sudden you can actually access more of the understanding regarding that archetype. And this applies to everything. This is not like rocket science. I'm not sharing something new here that it's going to go, oh my God, like he's just, we do this in our daily existence. You know what I mean? I'm just sharing with you in terms of the nature of how Neptune expands our consciousness through allowing us to surrender to what we think we know and to be open, Neptune, to the universe and to potential and to explore more so that we can then find more aspects of reality in time and space, and to devolve and to allow ourselves to learn more about what's actually occurring so that we can access more of ourselves, right? We can expand ourselves. Another way that we can actually see Neptune in our chart as well is that Neptune is always correlating to that source of energy, right? That inspiration. So whenever you have this like light that is occurring here, it always gets pushed through a diamond, and what comes out the other side is the spectrum of light. So Neptune can be perceived as this part of us where we incarnate light, inspiration, energy into the physical, and we do that through the connection of the electrical system. That's what creates the electromagnetic spectrum, Uranus. But Neptune is just this inspiration. It's like liquid love, as it were. And the process is like being drip fed from here into this electromagnetic spectrum that then is perceived as the experience of life. Okay, so if your potential or expansion of consciousness is very limited, then this spectrum of light that's going to be reflected is going to be very limited. So again, I'm coming back to the same thing here, that Neptune asks you to be more open. The more open you are to the dimensions of reality, the more of the spectrum you're going to be perceiving. Okay, all right. So again, here's this example that I wanted to use regarding the nature of man and the relationship to understanding ourselves. You can see that there's circles over here, okay? If you have a look if you observe these circles, now I'm really wanting to just use this opportunity to understand that if we understood man as whole, the circle is pretty big, okay? It's pretty big. We start here at the bottom and we spiral up, and the more we open our consciousness to the universe, the greater we can have experienced within ourselves, like an open mind. Doesn't mean that you have to accept everything. It just means having an open mind to allow yourself to absorb the nature of consciousness that's in your field so that you can then discern it and bring it into your reality. This, in fact, is spiritual incarnation. Opening up to the cosmic forces and then assimilating it back into yourself. Opening up to the cosmic forces and assimilating back into yourself. And the process of man is that story. That's exactly what this is about. The process is assimilating through the chakras up into the pineal gland, allowing yourself to be open to the universe, and then incarnating that back into your life. It's the toroidal field. Okay? And again, here's another example of that process. I know that I've used this in another video. And this is, again, the archetype of Neptune. It's the fabric of reality and how we tune in to dimensions. And the dimension that we tune into is relative to the openness that we are able to and willing to perceive. Another great example of how this is operating, the morphogenetic field here, the nature of consciousness. This is why you can always, empaths can always feel and sense things in that way, because everything is connected. In Neptune, there is no separation. So as you're sharing this with me right now, you're assimilating this knowledge and information, and you're opening up to it, and you're allowing yourself to understand a more deepest perspective. And the reason why that's the case is because it's all connected. If you've taken ayahuasca or gone on DMT trips, etc., or opened your third eye through LSD and stuff, you would notice that this is what reality looks like actually. So I wanted to show you this picture over here that was kind of interesting regarding Neptune. The way that I also see Neptune in my life and in the world is that everything is information according to the electromagnetic spectrum. So at this stage, your eyes are perceiving everything in a material form, but once you transcend the material form and color of it, it's actually just information consistently. And when you are opening yourself up to knowledge and information, you're absorbing information like that. Okay, the numbers, the assimilation of knowledge. And what's also occurring is when you're eating food, when you're interacting with people, you're consistently downloading and receiving information that then becomes the way that you transcribe or the way that you understand a transmission within your own consciousness. It's this kind of imagery that really accesses how Neptune flows into you. All right. And of course, again, because Neptune is sensory perception orientated, ESP, this is such a great picture to see how the molecular structure of our consciousness or the world is interacting. I mean, we're essentially this, on the most on the most microscopic level. We're looking at this over here, and we're seeing Neptune. Everything is connected in that way. It's the same thing, That over there is the numbers. That's what it looks like in through a microscope. So learn to see, realize that everything connects to everything else. It's like literally the archetype of Neptune. Learn to see, and that's what Neptune does. It opens up your consciousness and allows you to see what's really going and realize that everything connects to everything else. It's pretty powerful. And finally, just this imagery over here was really powerful for me because I felt like they are the same thing. This is what you are, and this is how it gets experienced in the physical being or the body. It's pretty neat, isn't it? Neptune's that process of bringing your incarnation into your life. This is when I say incarnate yourself, I'm talking about allowing your heart-centered expression through your exploration of consciousness to come into the body and experience it and assimilate it through the numbers that I showed you there. So it becomes a part of your story, it becomes a part of who you are, and then it comes out the other side and it goes right back. I mean, this toroidal field again you have. It's pretty powerful. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment in the comments below. Let me know what you think about it. And until then, take care. Bye. And until then, take care. Bye-bye.